You grew up in intense sales like I did, but you went straight from intense sales to entrepreneurship, basically. And I kind of went from intense sales to slowly dipping my feet into merchant services, into other types of sales, and building it over time. You just went in. And I mean, you started when you were a child, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. Early 20s. Now you've had many years, multi 8 figures. What do you think the most expensive lesson that you've learned growing to, 50, 60, 70 million has been?
I think one of the most expensive lessons I learned early on was don't partner out of insecurity. And I think so many people early on in their business, they search for a business partner because they want validation and they feel like they can't do it themselves. And that was me included. And so I partnered with someone who ended up trying to kick me out of the business, and we had all this stuff. And then, I ended up buying him out of the business. But that was at the time, it was a 6-figure mistake. Bought him out for multiple 6 figures, borrowed money from my parents' retirement. From my brother, and from Hal Elrod. Those are the 3 people that funded me. And that was the best thing I ever did, was buying him out of the business, because then I controlled my own destiny. But that would be a super expensive lesson. I think there's a lot of other expensive lessons of sometimes the cheapest talent is the most expensive. And so early on in the business, I feel like I still fall into this trap sometimes, is you want the value higher.
Yeah.
Like it's like kind of just figuring out of the business, are you a farm league or are you going to go get the prize draft picks? Like I grew up in South Carolina and we were always a Braves fan, and the Braves were always known growing up as like, they got the farm league. So they're just like, taking these undervalued players and kind of developing them. Well, that's a really long-term strategy, and it's a low-cost talent strategy. But that was always kind of the way that I approached bringing people into the business, is I want to, probably because I'm a college dropout and blue-collar guy. So it's like, I want to bet on the underdog and I want to bring them into the organization, but then realizing this is some of the most expensive talent I have. And sometimes you got to know when to go for the proven winner and just either well pay or overpay top talent. So those would just be a couple. There's a bunch of them though.
Yeah. I think that's a really challenging issue for specifically, I think it's challenging at lots of stages of the business, but until you have a lot of money, until you have like a lot of excess in your business, it's very hard to make those decisions. And
especially with emerging markets or emerging channels.
Say more.
Well, like right now, we're investing a lot into content. This is bringing in no revenue. But in my mind, I'm like, I know I need to go get the best people, which on the P&L looks really stupid.
Yeah.
So you got to have a lot of conviction for that. So then I catch myself saying, well, this person, they got a lot of potential. And it's like, okay, well, this is a no CAC channel that has the potential to grow to an 8-figure channel over the next 2 to 3 years if we do it well, where the only costs are the people. Why would I not just go overspend on the best talent? But it's just almost like this weird, I don't know if you ever, I guess you're more Midwest guy, right?
Yeah,
Midwest? Yeah. So, like Midwest, Southern kind of, but just like blue collar frugal mentality, it's like so hard to shake when you just grew up that way your whole life. I just find myself even still in a decision like this. I'm like, I'm extremely bullish on this, and yet I'm wanting to cheap out on the investment that it's going to take to make it pop off.
Yeah. Well, I think that, certainly there's an emotional component to those things, and inevitably we all have emotional triggers on this stuff. And sometimes it's like you spend, and then you hit a wall and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm spending so much. Let me not spend as much.
Yes.
And that happens to be the moment when you're making a decision around XYZ, right? Yes. And you cheap out on the thing that you shouldn't be.
Exactly.
But I also think that you're talking about it very pragmatically, and which is great, but you're also talking about it pragmatically when you have money. And so when you don't have money, you have a totally different conversation, which is, I'm going to go in the red and I'm going to be going negative for X amount of time and just racking up credit, right? Debt. Is that the time, right? Or I'm not going to be able to hire this other person because I'm going really big on one person's salary right now. So do you do 3 people that are a farm league, like you said, or do you do 1 pro? So how do you think about that from, let's go back to 2 million, 5 million coming up. Where were you when you shifted your mentality to let me find the A players, like truly, and I'm willing to overpay the A players to bring them on. Because I know that you brought a bunch of people up with you.
Oh, yeah, big time. I think probably around the 5 million a year range is probably where I really had to learn that lesson, because we took the total farm league approach, which I actually think if you can do it early on is a super smart approach. And you just got to really invest in the team, you invest in the culture. And that's where I think on the last episode, we talked about a lot of that, of like virtual culture, development, people, like all that stuff. And you got to find the right kind of people. But then what ended up happening is develop all these people. And I kind of talk about this, like there's this value curve, right? With talent, where early on, you're paying them more than they're worth, and they are not making you any money, but you know that you're going to keep investing them. And then kind of like their marketability, like, so let's say I bring someone in for 50 grand and then over 2 years, get them to 100 grand a year, marketability, market rate, right? But then maybe they're making 70, 75, but like, that's kind of the payoff for, like, they would be making 55 at this other company, but now they're worth 100, but I'm paying them 75 because I have developed them. That's where I think my hypothesis was like, okay, well, that's just going to work and they're going to be loyal to that. And then I think we go through that phase and they just start getting picked off by other companies. And so now I realized, okay, well, I probably should have just paid them more at that point.
Yeah.
Because I developed them, and the cost to bring someone off the street is going to be more than that. So I think I made a lot of mistakes there. You've got your 0 to 1 employees, like kind of your pioneers, and then you have your builders. And so in that early stage, you need the pioneers. You need the 0 to 1 people, but then you start introducing structure and organization. And they're like, yo, I didn't sign up for this. This isn't fun like it used to be. This isn't all that stuff. And so then you just realize it's actually a totally different avatar of the person that you're hiring in general. So I think I've had to shift with some of that, where I love the pioneer and I want to hire pioneers, but at the stage of the business we're in now, it's like, no, I need the person who wants to be a lieutenant and has done it.
Yeah, I think the other side of that, outside of those two worlds, you have the third, which is like the corporate executive. And so, the
gray hair,
and I hire, at sort of the executive level, I look at those people and I really don't want them, because they're so used to other people doing things, right? Yeah. They're too far up the chain. They've worked for very large organizations, and so they're used to being able to delegate everything. And so the accountability and ownership, at least what I've experienced, tends to be pretty poor. And I know for sure that there are amazing executives out there, and that there is a place when they're unbelievable. But I think that then you get into the multi-million-dollar a year executives that really are drivers. But the few hundred grand a year executives who have done well in some organization have had layers of management under them, layers of employees. And so there is also this cultural fit. And it's not only, and I think you highlighted a good point about those two elements of cultural fit, which is brand new, or, hey, I need team players that can take directives and run with them, right? As opposed to, actually, mutual friend Noah Kagan got kicked out of Facebook. Yeah. He was employee 30 or something at Facebook. And his story was really about taking a marketing campaign and running with it without permission. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. So
he got fired.
He basically, to your point, he basically doesn't talk about it, doesn't want to talk about it, because he's like, I fucking wrote a blog post about it. Go read it. I'm tired of talking about this. Totally. But that was basically it, is the pioneers of Facebook, the first 30 employees, were doing things and running quickly. And he took the initiative to run with something. But they had moved into the sort of, like you said, we need lieutenants to follow direction and actually execute.
To your point, it's Jason Lemkin talks about, I think, like the different types of VPs of sales and how they're not all created equal. And a lot of times, and I've fallen in this trap too, it's like, oh, they worked at HubSpot, or they are high up at Meta or whatever. And it's like, well, the litmus test becomes, have they recently done what you're hiring them to do? and are they ready to sign up for it again? So did they go 10 to 100 million recently, Or did they join HubSpot when HubSpot was at $1 billion? Well, then they actually don't know how to do this. Even though you think they're amazing, and they have 7 people under them that are doing everything, to your point, right? So this, like, you got to avoid those people like the plague and find the people who have actually done it. But then there's, I think, the other side of the coin, which Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, which is like, you need B players. And also knowing where do we farm league or value hire and where do we need to. And so that's where I think when I started making this shift, I'm like, okay, cool. We got to have top tier everything. But then realize that the business can't support that. It's like, okay, over here in this entry level sales or customer support role, we need a farm league.
Yeah.
But then over here with this key executive that's going to go tackle XYZ, like customer acquisition channel, we need the sniper and go find the best person and pay top talent. So then almost just trying to figure out, okay, what's the position I'm hiring for? And is this it's okay if we have a B player or a farm league person, or we got to go hire the best?
Well, you're also not going to have happy employees if you hire the best and put them in a role that doesn't have the growth potential, right? So if you hire people that are newer, but they have the growth potential in that, they will be happy there, right? If you hire somebody and put them in that role and they already know it all, they're not going to be happy, right? Like, growth is the primary deciding factor of happiness in life. Like, you're either progressing or you're not. But you said something that I think is worth highlighting, which is, have they done what you want them to do recently? And I want to double click on that because it's not enough. And I think where I've fallen on my face a bunch of times, and I think people tend to, is they hear, as you said, oh, I did the sales process at HubSpot, right? And so you have to double click on that and say, what was that sales process like? How many calls did you make? What were your stats? What was your closing rate? Et cetera. And until you actually dig into that, they can say, oh yeah, I did the sales cycle here. Was the sales cycle what I'm asking you to do? And sales is I think about a lot, is a beautiful one because you can track the cycle so cleanly. And so it's so easy to drill into that and compare it to what you have. It becomes much stickier with, other roles, customer service, marketing, et cetera.